Mike Cardano with the Roto Experts and the Fantasy Sports Network here with you as NFL training camp is heating up and your fantasy football draft is fast approaching. And we've got so many questions coming in from viewers that I just can't keep up. But we're here to serve, and I've got Mike Clay from Pro Football Focus with us on the line to help work through some of your questions and concerns and to do some of the heavy lifting. Mike, thanks for taking some time out of your busy day today.
Hey, anytime. It sure is a busy time. The Hall of Fame game is right around the corner. It's really exciting after spending the whole off season looking at the tape and the numbers to get some new data to work with here.
All right, let's get right to it. I'm going to read off some players that we're getting questions from our viewers. I'm going to give you their positional ADP and their overall ADP, and you tell me if you think they're going to underperform, meet expectations, or outperform. You ready? We'll start with some tight ends. Let's go with Ladarius Green, who's got a positional ADP of 16 and an overall ADP of 157.
I have him 16, so I'm pretty much right there with him, but I think his ceiling's so high that he will actually exceed those expectations. I mean, certainly Antonio Gates in the way a little bit right now, but I think he'll play enough to exceed even where I have him, so I like him a lot this year.
Do you see him as actually getting more targets as the season goes on than Gates?
Well, I'm not necessarily. I mean, I think it really depends on Gates, but Gates is 34, and, we've seen him with injury troubles in the past. So, if they struggle, which is not what they did last year, if they're going to miss the playoffs, I think that he'll get a full complement of snaps down the stretch. But early on, and certainly the first half of the season, and if they're competitive, he's just going to continue to play in that number 2 role, if you will. A heavily used number 2 role, but Gates is still going to play if he's there.
All right, how about Rob Gronkowski, number 3 tight end going off the boards, number 30 overall. What are your thoughts on his health and his overall ability to play at that level?
Well, I think his ADP is on the rise since we got the clean bill of health. So I do definitely think he'll exceed number 30. Frankly, I think that he's so appealing in round 2 right now that I think he has made Jimmy Graham a poor pick in the first round just because Gronkowski, when he's active, is probably a better fantasy asset than Graham, and you can get him around later. So why take Graham in first, get a great player, and then take Gronkowski in round 2?
That's an interesting way to look at things. Interesting. All right, Jordan Cameron, 6th tight end being taken, number 61 overall. I'm guessing that Hoyer's going to start the season as quarterback, and then we'll see Manziel at some point later on. But what is your feeling on Jordan Cameron?
I think he's about right where he's going right now. I mean, he's going to be heavily targeted in that offense, and he is a pretty good talent. But there's some concerns as well. I mean, last year the damage he did was in a very pass-heavy offense. This year they're going to try and run more. He did it with poor quarterbacking last year, but it's different quarterbacks this year. We don't really know what to expect from Hoyer and eventually Johnny Manziel. And he also led the position routes run last year, which is hard to repeat that at any position. So any drop-off there could be problematic as well. So I think he's right around where he belongs right now.
Okay, let's move on to some of the wide receivers people are asking about. Eric Decker's moved on to New York, 34 at his position, 88 overall. We obviously don't expect what we saw last year, but what do you expect?
Well, I think he's going to slightly exceed that ADP. I have him just inside my top 30. The reason for that is, although I do think the Jets are going to be extremely run-heavy, something they've done pretty much every year. Rex Ryan's been there. And also they're probably not going to be anywhere close to the league lead in touchdowns. They'll probably be near the league basement. That's a concern as well. But I think he's going to see a massive volume of targets, probably upwards of 30% of the team targets. So I think that volume is enough to keep him inside the top 30.
Well, that's interesting. I guess it may be more valuable in a PPR league than a standard, I would guess.
Definitely.
Okay. Emmanuel Sanders has moved on to Denver, 28th at his position, 78 overall. How's he looking?
Well, I have Sanders number 28 as well, so I'm right on his ADP. I think he's right there with Eric Decker in terms of value. Obviously, if Wes Welker goes down, I think that Sanders could really jump up there into maybe even the top 15 option every week. And Welker, has had concussion issues. He's up there in age. It could happen. And that's another reason I like the rookie Latimer in later rounds, just in case. All it takes is one of the top 3 receivers to go down, and Latimer is playing almost every down. So, I think Latimer is probably a better value considering where he's going right now.
Okay, all right. Let's move on to some of the running backs people are asking about, and this one's kind of polarizing. People either love him or they don't really like him at all. Toby Gerhart has a new gig, and he's being taken 20th at his position and 51st overall. What are your thoughts on Gerhart?
I like him. I mean, last year Jacksonville was the number 6 pass-heaviest team in the league, but if you do a little digging, you see that it was a product of game flow. They trailed a lot in the second half. They were actually, if you adjust for game flow, they were the number 20 team, so they were on the run-heavy side of the league, and that's no surprise with defense-minded Gus Bradley there. So I think Jacksonville should just be a little bit better this year, and that'll allow them to run the ball more in the third quarter and maybe even in the fourth. So I think Gerhart, as the clear feature back with very little competition, is going to see upwards of 20 or so touches every game, and I think that makes him a top 15 option in this position.
Now, would you say that his value comes as much as a receiver as a runner, or do you find him more as a runner?
Well, I don't think he's going to be near the league lead in receptions or anything like that, but I think he'll do enough as a receiver to keep him right in that mix. Whereas you have a guy like an Alfred Morris or Stephen Ridley who loses a lot of value because they don't catch balls. I think Gerhart just does just enough that it can keep him in the top 15. I think the value really comes from a high volume of carries.
Okay, all right. Now I want to back up 1 second, go back to the wide receivers. There's somebody I forgot here that I wanted to get in. Keenan Allen, we spoke about Ladarius Green. We'll be playing kind of alongside him. 14th wide receiver being taken in 38th overall. You think he builds on what he did last year?
I like Allen. I mean, he's still pretty young, so he probably still has a few things to learn, and he'll have some more competition for targets. You have to remember, Denario and Alexander and Malcolm Floyd both got injured last year, which really gave Allen a chance to play every down. So he's going to have a little bit more competition for targets, and San Diego is going to go back to, they really ran the ball a lot in the second half, and Allen, it made Allen's fantasy value really dependent on touchdowns down the stretch. So I think he takes a tiny step back. I think he's a decent number 2 option, but where his ADP is probably right around where he finishes.
Now, do you think that Frank Reich coming in there calling the plays, is he going to be running the K gun, or is he? He was Peyton Manning's quarterbacks coach as well. You think what kind of an effect do you think that has on Keenan Allen and the San Diego offense overall?
Well, I think Mike McCoy has a lot to say about that offense. We saw his tendencies from Denver kind of carry over to San Diego. If you look a little deep at McCoy's history, so I do not think we're going to see any major overhaul in that offense, and that was kind of the early word. There's some talks about them speeding up the offense a little bit, but I